Gary, when you were describing earlier about all the different co-productions that happened within their own clinical area or within their area of the hospital, and then you described that all of those ideas then came together and they overlapped and they interlinked. How would you describe that co-production helps a hospital system integrate together so services are wrapping around people in a different way than they have been in the past?
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting because when I started in this project, I made several calls around people within the health and care system in Suffolk, and I have to say there was a degree of mistrust. Okay. People saying, well, the hospital are going to go and do what the hospital want to do, and there'll be no regard for us in primary care or us in this or us in that. And just quite a disappointing position, but it was heartfelt and I could get the meaning of it. By co-producing, when I introduced the approach that we were going to have, and no, look, we don't want to do this as a hospital, we can't do this as a hospital, we have to do this as a system, we have to do this as a community, we have to do this as a people. Suddenly that trust shifted and people were saying, if you do that will be brilliant. Mm-hmm. That would be far more open than we would expect, and we think that's that would break down some of those old entrenched positions where people look upon the hospital as the all-conquering, all-powerful machine that sits at the heart, and at the expense of all the other smaller peripheral entities. So co-production can help you get over those barriers of trust and can make sure that you are considering the full role that your project plays in the wider system. An example is, again, I only use simple examples because they're all that I understand. Imagine if we determined that the hospital, the all-powerful hospital, needs 800 beds, as an example, right, which would be a 25% increase in the number of beds we've got now. Fantastic, we build them, fabulous. If we'd done that alone without considering how and where we discharge to, those 800 beds would become just as crammed as 600 beds.
Still wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. There still wouldn't be enough. It'd never be enough because you can't. Your bottleneck is the system. So you have to think about integration, co-production. You have to consider all elements of it. It's not just a hospital is not a standalone entity. It is a cog within a machine, and if you make that cog all powerful, it's going to strip the teeth of the other cogs. They're not going to work. You can only go as fast as the slowest part of the system. So we came up with a set of strategic principles that were co-produced by the system. It was the first piece of co-production that we did, and we did it as a team. So it wasn't something that the hospital drew up and then shared. That would have been far too simple and far too... it would have suffered from a lack of trust again. Well, you've come up with these, giving us a chance to comment.
It's not the spirit of co-production.
No, it's absolutely not. At all. So the first thing we did was, let's get a group of people together.
And just to note, they were from lots of different areas in the community.
Yeah, from community services, from the hospice, from mental health, from the commissioners, from primary care, from the hospital. But get them all in the room. What are the strategic principles that we're going to observe here? And they included things like, the money has to follow the service. So if we're thinking of moving service or transforming service, you have to consider it as a system. What's the knock-on effect? And I think we came up with 11 or 12 strategic principles. I still revisit them. They still act as an anchor point for decisions. Is this decision going to be in line with the strategic principles that were co-produced by this system? That's massively powerful. Simple little bit of paper like that from a 2-hour session?
Yeah. Wow.
It was all, but
and
now...
the shit was there, wasn't it?
And now trust is on a different level, engagement and co-production's on a totally different level, and we've got like a little guide just to keep us all honest, and anyone can flag that, anyone can raise the red card and say, actually, you're not observing that principle.
Oh, perfect.
Which is, I think, pretty powerful.
Yeah.